Tim Rifat, you're a very kind and modest man, and you want to tell us something about super soldiers, is that right?
Yeah, I've been told that you've been interviewing loads of these so-called super soldiers who've been saving the world and making it a better place. So what's your recollections of the most interesting super soldiers you've met so far?
They're very meek, mild and quiet people who don't scale tall buildings but seem to have some kind of existence in a astral domain.
Right. And what have they done to, what have been their achievements?
Well, one of them, I mentioned his name, Kieran Lee Perrin. He's got implants in his head, and he's meant to be, copies of him are meant to be fighting in other dimensions.
Right.
One's in jail because he got thrown out of the family and threw a hissy fit and wanted some money because he got thrown out of the family. Some have got it seems to have a lot of psychic warfare involved, whatever that is.
Right.
And the Russians have got, Putin's been met by one or two of them. Hillary Clinton's been involved in auctioning some of these assets off in some kind of astral auction. So I'm very interested to hear what it's all about, Tim.
Well, as a scientist...
And Tim stands for something, doesn't it?
Yeah, Tim. Tim Tony Stark Rifat.
We've got an audience here, and there are sometimes grins and remarks off camera. And we've got a very important thing here called a weasel. Or is this an easel or a weasel? No, it's an easel.
An easel. Easel.
Nothing like getting everything right to start with. And you've also got a very specially made T-shirt.
No, this was in the charity shop window. It's just got my mission statement. But as a scientist, you come to this and you get all of this stuff about psychic warfare and astral. As a scientist, what's the astral? What's psychic? So
I have talked to what's his damn name? U.S. Psychological Intelligence Operations Michael Aquino, and he talks about energy
the guy who's
fields.
been into Satanism.
Yeah.
They made him
Temple of Set.
Temple of Set is Satanism. Set is the Egyptian god of evil.
And
so that's what you would call the ancient version of Satan. Set, who chopped Osiris up into 8 pieces and
I thought it was 13.
And dumped him into the Nile.
Yes. And that was because he didn't want him to come together again. Is that right?
Yeah, and Isis, not Islamic State, but the Egyptian goddess Isis only found 7 of the 8 pieces. But as a scientist, again, that's just mythology. But we know that the US military's been heavily into Satanism with Aquino and made him a brigadier general. And we also know that the CIA have been procuring young children for sodomy and bestiality and rape and snuff rituals. So as a scientist, why are the US military into Satanism? Why are they into endemic paedophilia and snuff murder of children and eating them? This is very strange as a scientist.
Yep. Why indeed?
And why do we have...
Is it an energetic exchange needed for...
Why do we have these super soldiers who are wittering on about psychic things and astral and talking about the Nephilim and energy orbs and all this stuff? As a scientist, we walk into this madhouse of insane ideas and go, oh, this is crazy, so we don't study it. But then, of course, from my point of view as a scientist, I go in, well, the Rothschilds, who own the world and have got quadrillions, and we've got the dog barking in agreement, they run all of these eyes wide shut temples, and they're all behind this Satanism and bestiality and paedophilia and cannibalism and snuff movies of children. So it's made them rich, and if it hadn't been for Putin knifing the Rothschilds in the back, they'd have only had China to deal with. Now, of course, the Rothschilds are a spent force on the way out. But all the elite, all of the rich of the Western world are into all this stuff. So obviously it works because it makes them rich and famous, and they get lots of sex, and they get lots of praise from other people. So definitely something as a scientist well worth looking into. Why? Well, because that's where all the money is, and we chase the money.
Well, the fourth law of thermodynamics, the fourth law is thou shalt not lose thy funding.
Exactly. Now let's look at the history of super soldiers. It starts with the Nazis and their Ahnenöber. Hitler was keen on developing soldiers who had the ability to get into the Astral, whatever the Astral is. I'll explain what the Astral is from a scientific point of view. The ability to get into people's heads and be able to control them. And of course, the ability to kill people in the so-called Darth Vader method, and the ability to control reality. Now, looking at it from a business model, if you're a person who wants to get rich in a rigged society where the only way forward is to work all your life, if you can get a job, for chicken feed, while the super rich with quantitative easing give trillions to each other at negative interest rates, you can see that capitalism is now dead. But of course, any organization or any lone assassin or any entrepreneur can make themselves millions of dollars these days if they get capability in this so-called psychic warfare. Because if, for example, you can remotely kill a Rothschild and then tell the family, we'll go through your whole family and kill the rest of the Rothschilds until you pay us, then of course you're on to a recipe for making as much money as you like. So as you can see, if you're a Nigerian group, instead of sending begging letters to people for your dear aunt, or if you're a Chinese triad gang who wants to get into a lucrative multi-billion-dollar industry where there's no blowback, because remember, the police can't arrest you for psychic warfare because all the state governments are in a state of torment.
You have a situation then where people are doing the gardens, but why is this so serious? But the important thing is, why do these families get this power? Who do they engage with, and who have you engaged with on their behalf, or have you, to help them out in this? Why is this so important?
They're my bitches, and their only purpose is to give me money or die. Because remember, it's business. Remember the great Donald Trump? It's not personal, it's business. They've got all the money, and me and my people want it all. So it's all about getting the money. Remember, scientists witter on about they want to do things to save the world and make it a better place, but in fact that's wrong. Scientists are just greedy scumbags who just want the funding. It's all about funding. That's why they write numerous useless papers to get the funding. It's all about the money. Now, with psychic warfare, if you can, and if it's possible, to remotely kill the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers or any A-lister, then of course you're into a license to print money, because the police will never arrest you, because they can't take you to court, because if they publicised that this was possible, then everyone and their dog would be doing it. And there's nothing in law to prosecute you with. And luckily now with the new cyber currencies, where they even don't record transactions, you can then get billions or trillions or quadrillions transferred from the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, or the A-listers, the royal family, anyone with money, to the groups, organisations and people that have a handle on psychic warfare. And similarly, scum like MI5, which only employs Quasimodo paedophiles, are powerless to protect British A-listers. The same with the FBI, the same with in Europe with the European agencies. Now, if you want to go after, for example, a Rothschild and kill it, the normal method is to start in the so-called real world.
You mentioned the term "it." You're not a human yourself, is that right? You're
not at all. As I say, we all start off as humans, but then we can augment ourselves. So we're looking at ways of augmenting ourselves in order to have potentials which don't exist in the real number world, which for a mathematician is up here. This is the real numbers.
This is what we're taught at school, isn't it? Real and unreal numbers.
No, what you're taught at school generally is crap for the slave classes. Remember, you're just being educated to be a servant of the ruling class. The only purpose of humans is to be underlings and beg for jobs. Now, of course, we've got 50% of students in Britain getting a degree so that they can queue up to work in McDonald's if they're lucky. But remember, that's not the whole realm. Real numbers, in the real number world, it's impossible for my energy body to move elsewhere, because I'm just flesh and bone. That's all it is. We're just wetware. But of course, in mathematics, there's a whole field which doesn't include real numbers. We've got complex number space. We've got I, which is the square root of -1. That's the complex number realm. And we've also got over here -I, which, as I'll explain, is also the square root of -1. But that's the realm of Satanism, or Satan.
Who is this guy, Satan? What's his?
Well, one can think of the noosphere, which
the
is
noosphere? If you could explain the term when you use it, yeah.
The noosphere, which is the realm of consciousness that pervades the reality of man. And from quantum mechanics, the Copenhagen interpretation, the observer is supposed to observe a quantum wave function, and the quantum wave function collapses by the act of observation to produce a event, a particle in one location, or a wave in one location, because their particles and waves are synonymous. So that means we can't divorce observation from the real world. So that means the noosphere is the realm of consciousness all around the planet that's collapsing the quantum wave function and producing reality. And this noosphere is fed by humans. So we had the pharaonic science of the high priests of Egypt, where the high priests were the scientists that ran control of the noosphere.
Now, were they Nephilim or were they Anunnaki?
Who cares? In the noosphere, we've got, because they're just names, in the noosphere we've got archetypes. Archetypes are things that are fed by the observer, the humans. So humans are uplining, and the pharaoh, of course, quantum superimposed himself with the archetype of God, and that meant that there was an upline of energy from the humans of Egypt to the pharaoh. Now, Satan, or Lucifer, or the devil, can be seen as the archetype of evil if you're a Christian. Now, the only purpose of Christians is to give all of their energy and their souls to the entity they call God, or the Elohim, which then sucks them dry. Or we've got the archetype of the devil, which can be thought of as the archetype of evil, which sucks up all of the energy from evil people. So you can see the devil in the noosphere is extremely strong. All the people that rape, kill, murder, steal, lie, cheat, extort, or have adultery, all of them are feeding this archetype. Then, of course, you've got Lucifer, which is separate from the devil, in that Lucifer is the light bringer that fights the archetype of the Elohim, that wants you to give your soul to the Elohim, wants you to grow old and die, and then in the afterlife gives you streets of gold and eternal life in heaven, which no one's ever seen, no one's ever manifested. But trust me, it's not a long con. Give me all of your energy and your soul, and I promise you in the afterlife you'll live in heaven. So you can see the Elohim, or the entity that is behind this long con, is bleeding the Christians dry, and the devil archetype is bleeding all of the evil out of people. Then, of course, you've got the Luciferic archetype, which all of the Illuminati worship, which makes them rich and powerful and famous, and gives them powers to control reality. And then, of course, you've got all of the Marvel archetypes, like the Avengers, that are bleeding energy out of children and audiences. The DC ones, all of these bleeding energy out. And you can see why Disney has taken over control of these archetypes by buying the Star Wars franchise and Marvel, etc. Warner Brothers does the DC ones because they're huge collectors of energy. And the US military is all about control of the noosphere. So we can start off with the history of super soldiers, which was with the Ahnenurbe. The Nazis were trying to develop super soldiers that could control the noosphere, control reality, etc. And then after the fall of Nazi Germany, the Americans and the Russians got Nazi scientists and started to develop the same technology. So you see with MK Ultra.
So the whole thing about the space program and NASA launching the rocket, the Saturn rocket.
Werner von Braun, the Nazis,
that
from
was really
Peenemünde.
just,
That was just a development of Nazi technology.
Yeah.
And the psychic warfare program, the super soldier program, is just a development of Nazi Ahnenerbe technology. Ahnenerbe was their super soldier program.
And that's why we have a National Health Service, because the Nazis won, they took control of Britain that way.
No, as I say...
They brought the stuff here. Yeah.
Lots of research was brought here, yeah, and all the patents for all the chemicals and drugs were all taken from the Germans and given to the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. They went around appropriating all of those patents, but that's by the by. So one can see that MK Ultra, which was about feeding soldiers hallucinogenic drugs and about sticking them in coffins to wipe their brains, 6 months in a coffin, given a colostomy and just kept in the dark, and of course the turning of humans into dogs, trainable things that just obey commands, with massive electroshock therapy to the brains to wipe the brain. All of this MK Ultra was to try and develop super soldiers, because of course with a super soldier you've got the ability to go outside the set, where in this you've got normal consciousness with a C, but with a super soldier you're moving it to another place where this person then has the ability to just kill without compulsion.
Is this multiple personality?
Yeah.
Creation of multiple
Or
personalities?
you move it to another position where they can remember lots of data to be a messenger. That's the basis of MK Ultra, and the modality to move it, of course, is drugs, or you can use total sensory deprivation.
Is that the Monarch program for that?
No, that's all about UFOs. Sensory deprivation, or else you can use electricity. Now, as a scientist, I don't honestly care about drugs and sensory deprivation and electricity. What I care about is the underlying physics behind it, and can we replicate super soldiers, the ability to have different capabilities which we didn't have previously. And what they find with this multiple personality technology is that when you have multiple personalities, the person that has multiple personalities, each personality has different physical attributes. They'll have different blood pressure, some might be diabetic, some might be stronger. They literally have different physical characteristics and mental characteristics. So is there an underlying control mechanism that allows us to move a person from being simple wetware, which has no capability, into a realm where we can psychically project our awareness over a Rothschild, go into their minds, drive them mad, make them ill, and kill them, which then means we've got a recipe for making money. That's the super soldier. You can see from the Pentagon's point of view, the ability to do this would be top of their agenda, because then they can go and control or kill Xi Jinping or Putin or Kim Jong-un.
And Putin seems to be skilled in these types of
Yeah, remember the
himself.
Russians acquired a lot of this technology from the Nazis.
And they object to being killed, so they would somehow maybe want to do something about it.
Now let's look at the basis for multiple personalities. So if we can borrow Duncan, kill. So when you've got a human, you've got an energy field around them. Now, what the shamans of the New World found was that there's an assemblage point on a human which controls the noosphere, which controls the reality of this human, and that if you can move the assemblage point, you can then replicate the multiple personality phenomena. So if you can move this assemblage point, which can be done by drugs or electricity, or confine them in a coffin for months and months, then you can then alter the capabilities of the person. But of course, if you're a super psychic, you can simply grab the assemblage point and yank it out of the body, which then means that you will then have the energy body of the person in front of you, and you can start doing things to the energy body of this person and then put it back in the person, and that will then cause changes in that person. Now, this all seems rather mad to a scientist like myself, so there has to be a science behind it. So the assemblage point is this thing that controls the modality of the person, and if you can manipulate the assemblage point, then you can start moving energy bits of that person outside. You can start dealing with the energy bits of this body outside and then put them back in. This, thank you, Duncan. This,
which I think they tried doing with Max Spears.
Well, Colin Bloy, when I left university, was an Illuminati magus who was into moving archetypes out of the body and dealing with them. But as we can see, we're now moving from the real number realm into the complex number realm, where I is equivalent to a 3 space. This is the realm of psi space. So complex numbers give you this energy body which you can fiddle around with, but we're moving from real numbers to complex numbers. We're moving around in an anti-clockwise direction, which of course means that it requires energy. So you've got to pump in energy into this to be able to get here to manipulate the so-called energy fields you're talking about. So it's only special people with huge surpluses of energy that can do this. Or, for example, people who are worshipped, the pharaonic pharaohs and his high priests, who can do this. Or, in the modern day, the witches who are worshipped and given loads of energy, who of course are your Taylor Swift and your Katy Perry and your Ariana Grande. If you look at their videos, they've got lots of psychic warfare videos out which are using this energy. But this means you literally need billions. Remember, the witches have billions of views, 100 million followers, so they've got loads of energy uplining to them, and them they of course being top of the pyramid. Now, if you're some Nigerian or a Russian or some poor American white supremacist group who wants to get into psychic warfare, you've got virtually no energy. So that precludes anyone starting, because you don't have 100 million followers on Twitter, you don't have 10 billion views on YouTube. But of course, we can go this way. And this way, of course, gives you energy.
So Satan behaves like a bank?
Exactly. And will be giving you...
Sorry for the noise, folks. Hope this is audible.
Loads of energy. Loads of energy comes out if you can move into the satanic realm. This is the realm of psi space. Same as there. Minus I is equivalent to a 3 space. But this is the ones where bad things happen. This is the negative space. So this is the realm of broken dreams, the realm where things go wrong, the realm of depression, the realm of bankruptcy, the realm of old age, the realm of disease. And of course, one can see why we've got so many satanic groups, because when you're into Satanism, into witchcraft, then you're gaining energy from the process. So we can see with Aquino from the US military, Brigadier General Aquino, who brought Satanism to the US military. You can see why he was brought into the US military, because Satanists, by definition, can get into psi space, and anyone can get into psi space this way because it gives you energy.
But it must give it to you at a cost.
Normally, the cost is that you sell your soul to Satan. But of course, that's old style, non-scientific use of, because this is just mathematical space which underlies the reality. Remember, the machine code of reality is mathematics. It isn't talk. Now, of course, with the genius Tim Rifat, we find that in this realm we've got archetypes. Here we've got the negative archetype of the gun, and here we've got in positive psi space, we've got the negative archetype of the gun. Here the gun is NRA, supporting democracy and the rule of law. Here the gun we have producing hell on earth, which of course would be Mexico, Nicaragua, El Salvador, all these lovely places where
that's why they need those wars.
Where the gun rules. Now, if you can, you're a simple person that wants to get into killing the Rothschilds for profit, you've got no energy. But if you could merge your energy body, which is feeble, with that of the gun, which is enormous, then you would suddenly acquire the energy to be able to do miraculous things. Remotely kill people, kill the Rothschilds, make them ill.
What do you mean exactly, merging the energy of the gun? I mean, the gun's going bang bang, shooting somebody, right?
No, we're not talking about the gun here. This is a gun in real number space. We're talking about the gun in complex number space. We're talking about the archetype of the gun. So this is a complex energy field in the noosphere. Think of the gun as a quantum wave function which is observed by the observer to collapse it in real number space to make a gun. But the gun's made out of energy, and the gun also has a life in complex number space, or in the -I complex number space. So you can actually call up the archetype of the gun and merge yourself with the gun, and this then gives you the power to remotely kill people.
Is this like video games?
No, it's a complete science. Now, from mathematics, the key to being able to use complex number space to affect real number space and control real number space is one little equation, which is this: I to the power of I is equivalent to one of the values of it is 0.2, which means that this energy field here in complex number space, I, and this is another I, or in this case here, that's I, this one would be -I. If you can merge your little energy field of the person, I, into the gun, which is going inside it. There we are, that's I to the I-ing it, which then means you get a real number value, 0.2. So if you call up the archetype of the gun, we can call up the archetype of the gun all around us, walk into it, and once we're inside the archetype of the gun, that then produces a real number. This would be equivalent to the force, which Darth Vader in the so-called fictional films uses to harm people.
So you're saying that the Star Wars movies are not fictional?
The purpose of the Star Wars movies was to produce energy for the US military program, and that's why in the US military program they had something called the Jedi Brigade, where they were trying to emulate Jedis.
And Kieran Lee Perrin was a Jedi Knight from Croydon.
Yeah,
and he's a pretty super soldier.
Exactly.
So there's not a coincidence there.
But the problem is that the Americans are fucktards. And
why are they fucktards?
Because they didn't understand the physics behind it. Remember, the CIA
is that because they're playing with half the physics?
No, the half-wits. Because
the physics we know is publicly is fake, but the stuff that other people...
No. They don't have the physics because they're fucktards. The thing is that the CIA demonstrate to me that you can do something, will repeat it a couple of hundred times, and then we'll try and develop super soldiers to replicate what one person could do. From my point of view, I don't care what one person could do. They might be able to do it once. They can't duplicate it endlessly, which a scientist needs. I want to know what's the underlying physics and maths behind a super soldier. Then I can replicate it in any fuckwit that pays me money and then unleash them upon the world. So the whole methodology which I use is completely opposite to the American military, which is look for special people, implant them, use drugs, electricity, etc., stick them in boxes for months at a time, and then have them as mind-controlled, implanted weapon systems to use against your enemies. I want to know what is the underlying physics and maths, and then I can make any person capable of doing things that one of these fuckwits the CIA have picked off the street and has potential, like a Geller, make them look like cockroaches compared to what the capability is. Because remember, in the noosphere, you've got enormous amounts of energy. Imagine the whole planet is surrounded by energy fields, and if you can put yourself into that energy field, you can then use that force to then do real world things. Because we've gone now, once we go into the energy field here, we produce real number, so we can go back to the real number realm and start altering it. Similarly, this side, you've got any archetype in the satanic realm, which is -I. So if you allow this -I to enter into the person who's given themselves over to the satanic power, you will then get -I to the I, which gives you -0.2, which gives you the minus force, which then allows you to go back into the real number realm, and instead of adding to it, you can edit it, take chunks out. So as you can see, when you get possessed by the satanic force, it allows you then to be able to control reality and damage reality. kill Rothschilds, etc. So this is the possession methodology.
How would you know that that's happened? How would you identify that's happened to a real person, that they have been possessed in some way, or is there any means?
Yeah, you would find them generally in a mental hospital. With when you look in their eyes, you'd see reptilian-like entity staring out the eyes.
So the eyes are the secret in terms of black.
No,
people talk about black eyes or whatever.
It's just that they link you to the fifth dimension.
There's some photographs being shown by a colleague here that gives the impression that something Rothschilds have is some strange energy in the eye.
Doesn't actually matter, because remember, the Rothschilds are prey to new technology. Remember, the Rothschilds were in control until someone comes along with a anomaly in the matrix, a new technology, which then renders the old technology controllable.
What is this matrix? What is this matrix? I mean, people talk about it.
Well, we go on to that later. Now, going around the Argand diagram at the bottom, we've got -1, which is the realm of time-like space-time. Now, time-like space-time is the realm of the dream, or what we call the astral. So we've gone round that way, or we can go around that way. So when you talked about the astral, we finally found where the astral resides. It's the -1 part of going around the Argand diagram. And remember, in the Argand diagram, we motor around by multiplying by I. So 1 times I gives you I times I gives you -1, and we just move round, and then -1 times I gives you -I, and then finally -I times I gives you 1 again, the real numbers. So one can see that the astral realm, the realm where your so-called super soldiers you've been interviewing for a good decade, haven't you? Been going around? You remember, you talked to Colonel Alexander, who used to run the...
He didn't like me talking about he said some things apparently that he shouldn't have said. Colonel John B. Alexander, to you, please. Me.
No, not to me. To me, he's a worm, but fucktard. But what did he actually say that he shouldn't have been saying?
Well, he said there was events at Rendlesham Forest which happened a year before, and too hot to handle and stuff.
Gotcha. And you also talked to Major General Stubblebine?
I didn't talk to him, but it would be nice to talk to him, though.
Who was a 3-star general who was running the US psychic warfare program?
And also was with Alexander and with Dr. Rowney Kilda, visited the Russian UFO conference.
And of course, Stubblebine was trying to design US soldiers to walk through walls. So before everyone starts laughing, the US military, way back in early 80s, was desperately designing soldiers to walk through walls. And of course, they had gaggles of witches doing all manner of black magical rituals on army bases.
And was this to do with the sort of what?
This was trying to develop the US military's hold on Satanism, with, of course, Brigadier General Aquino, who and his Temple of Set, where they tried to bring in Anton LaFay's Bible of Satan technology into the US military. So one can see...
Did it work?
No, but that's because they're fucktard, they don't understand the physics. So we see with the astral is in this realm, that part of the Argand diagram, and the real number realm, which is positive, that is called by physicists space-like. and this is called by physicists when the scalar is -1. So one can think of this as a scalar field. That's called time-like. So when you fall asleep and you're walking around in dreams, that energy that you're wandering through is called time-like scalar. And when you wander around in the physical world, you've got space-like scalar.
What's the difference between those two terms? Can you explain the physics behind the scalar? What does that mean?
Yeah, the scalar gives you the physical, concrete, space-like reality, where if you walk from A to B, it's always the same distance. But in time-like reality, it's defined by whale physics. So if you go from A to B, it changes depending upon which route you take. So in whale space, the route you take through that space changes the distances. While in space-like space, it doesn't really matter what route you take. You can go to from London to Brighton via Oxford, count up the miles, and it'll be replicable distance. While in whale space, in dreamlike astral space, the route you take changes the distance between places. So you get that strange dreamlike reality where you go to a certain place in your dreams, but it changes depending upon which route you took to get there.
Is that something you can do with training?
Normally the military used drugs, but if you're into the getting into the astral dreamlike space, then Carlos Castaneda's The Art of Dreaming is a nice book if you want to train yourself in that area of awareness. Now, to start off with a super soldier, think of complex number space, which has been totally ignored by everybody. This satanic space is complex number space. If you can kill the body in complex number space, then of course, because of I to the I, you're going to then start killing the real number person. So if you can call up, for example, can I have a picture of Rothschild? Oh yeah. Oh, we got Nathaniel, the idiot. Nathaniel the fucktard. There we are. Good. Now we can call up. Sorry. They're money. So if you can start killing the Rothschild family, you can start extorting them, and there's nothing the police can do because psychic warfare doesn't exist.
But black magic does. Could they do it?
No,
the
black
Witchcraft
magic is
Act
not
or
covered in
something?
law. Who cares whether it works or not? What we're talking about is the inability of anyone to defend themselves using the police, FBI, or etc. They can come and shoot you quietly, but they have to use extrajudicial means. They can't use the courts or the legal system or the police. They have to use MI5 or other secret.
Our friends at MI5, you said nasty things about them. Surely they're
No,
there
they're
to
vermin.
help.
They're vermin. The only things
But aren't
MI5.
these-
We'll talk about and how to use MI5 in a minute, because remember they're the lowest form of filth, and their only purpose is to suffer and supply energy to super soldiers. Oh, good old Nathaniel, yeah.
That's the not so glamorous assistant.
Now, if we can call up the complex number space of Nathaniel, we can start doing nasty things to him in complex number space or the satanic space, and then inputting it back in order to control what happens to dear old Nathaniel. Now, of course, I use crystals. Why? Well, we need this I or minus I, and a crystal is a 3 space, but it's also, when you squeeze it, links you to the 5th dimension, the piezoelectric effect. And of course, if you can put your energy body as a remote viewer, remote viewing is projecting your awareness to a distant location. You can also project your awareness inside the crystal and get an eye to the eye effect in the crystal.
But there could be things in the crystal already. How do you make sure it's clean and it doesn't have other energies in there? Doesn't matter what type of crystal. Is it?
I agree with you, but remember, I've been spending all my life getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so I'm quite happy of the things in there which I consume. So the whole point of becoming a super soldier is to be the 1,000-pound gorilla, or 2,000-pound gorilla, or the 100-ton gorilla, King Kong, which then, or like the Hulk smash, which then tears everything else apart. So you don't honestly care what's in there, it just adds to you because you consume it. But if you're a normal fucktard, then there might be an entity in whatever thing you're using that can possess you. But remember, you can't do it. You have to pay me to do it for you, because you're going from almost no energy to trying to become a super soldier, which is virtually impossible. But then you can buy super soldier technology from me to.
So this is essentially a commercial for Tim Rifat Incorporated Productions PLC, Unlimited, Limited, etc.
No, the super soldier one is done dirt cheap. The real money is getting the surviving Rothschilds, Rockefellers, A-listers to pay me to protect them against the technology I'm teaching to produce an army of super soldiers. So I want everyone practicing.
That's something which James Casbolt was talking about. That's one reason he went into the dark side, and he went into jail, and he was dealing with things online called the Moo Cow Pack, I think. And some of the pictures were horrendous. But that seems to be one of his purposes.
Yeah, you want to make as many super soldiers as possible to go on the rampage.
He needed to be famous.
Sorry?
That's what he wanted, to be famous. So that was why the function of him going to jail, to be famous, so people would know about it.
Do they know about it?
Well, I've been publicising him, publicising you, Jesus.
Now with
blessings to Jesus if he's around.
With Nathaniel, we can attack his complex number space body. So we can simply, with I, that is a 3 space. We've got a special crystal. We can then pull out his complex number body, manifest it in front of us, and then we can turn it around. Remember, all humans die through the gap. So dying for a human.
Remember that. Okay, we've got to know that in the first place. Right?
There we are. There's a gap in the midsection, and the death resides on the left shoulder blade. And when they die, this force bursts inside. So you can think
something on the left shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spiders, other entities.
The entities that kill us, which of course are Set. The Temple of Set goes into the spiders of Set, which are on the backside of the Kabbalistic tree, which Kenneth Grant, the successor to Crowley, wrote 10 books on. So the Temple of Set's all about these entities, these death entities that kill humans and use humans as a foodstuff. Because remember, a human is only a foodstuff.
That's something I was researching at Sky. I called it the sting of the black octopus. Always in the left side.
Yeah. That's where the death resides. It goes in, and think of this as I. So we can see the I to the eyeing. Now, death, of course, is a negative psi space, so it's a minus I, which gives us something equivalent to minus 0.2. There are other values. I'm not going to go into the maths of it, but as you can see, death is taking away from the complex number space of humans. So if death can take away from us and slowly kill us, and eventually once this value is equivalent to 1, 1's a probability of 100%, 0.2 would be 20%. So you can see we die by increments. So it needs 5 attempts by death to kill us, because then that adds up to the 1. Hence the witches with their pentagram, pentagon, the 5. This methodology can be used to kill the idiot Nathaniel Rothschild.
That's interesting, since I've had 5 attempts on me.
Sorry?
I've had 5 attempts on me. Maybe the next will work.
So we can simply call up Nathaniel, and you can then, of course, you've got his energy field here. Now Colin Bloy...
Could you do that again, just from the point of view of the camera? Call up.
Yeah, just simply pull out the complex number space of Nathaniel here, and that of course is here, and we'd be adding to Nathaniel. So we need something to go this way into satanic space. So of course we need a luciferic crystal, which is one of these, which then pulls out the complex number space of Nathaniel Rothschild, but in this area. This adds to the real number. Here, subtracts from. So we're trying to subtract from the fucktard Nathaniel Rothschild. And then, of course, one can simply collect his death from his the left shoulder blade of his complex number body, and then shove it in. Now with that, of course, it carries information. So information we can then input as we put a 20% death charge into him, that we want to destroy his insular cortex, which lies behind the ear, or his myocardium. Yeah, that controls the heart, insular cortex, or the myocardium in the heart, or we can give him a stroke, or we can pull out his DNA and then simply go along and switch on the oncogenes and put them back. Colin Bloy used to run healing workshops where he dealt with people's archetype. It's called remote healing, and there are millions of people who are into remote healing, sending good energy to people to make them well. Here I'm taking energy out of people simply to make them old and kill them. So it's not as if millions of people don't use this technology. What we're doing is simply the opposite of what spiritual healers around the world and Reiki experts and all these other people are doing, but the opposite version. Or of course we can then, as we put it in, go to his penis and make him impotent. We're adding minus 0.2 to make him impotent. Or we can stick it into his prostate to damage his prostate. Or we can go into the brain center and simply imagine a needle going around through the eye sockets, scrubbing away with the needle his frontal cortex to give him a complex number lobotomy. As you see, we can get more interesting with with a minus I generator. We can call up the dead Steve Jobs, who's also Jewish. Kill! And grab the pancreatic cancer of Steve Jobs from his revenant, and then insert that back into the center, insert the information into Nathaniel Rothschild to get the Steve Jobs pancreatic cancer. Or, of course, we can call up from Satanic Space Amy Winehouse, or Philip Seymour Hoffman, two Jewish fucktards that kill themselves, grab out the madness, and then we take out with the left hand and insert with the right hand, and then into the center to give us that minus 0.2. So what we're doing is taking away from Nathaniel all the things that will stop him becoming a drug-addled idiot like Amy Winehouse and Philip Seymour Hoffman, and then we can simply put it back in to Nathaniel. Then we of course can repeat 5 times in order to make it 100%. So if you can do it quickly, you go bang, 1, that's 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Now, even better than that though, we can collect any death that's coming our way from the Rothschilds and MI5 and all that. Just collect it, and then simply call up the fucktard, put it there, and shove our own. So the more MI5 and the British government and the Rothschilds and the Americans and the rest of them want to kill us, the more they're providing the death force, which we then stick into our designated target. So since we know that the alignment position for death for a human is over the left shoulder blade, which is diametrically opposed to the assemblage point, which controls the reality of the human, we can stick our own death into the target. So the more enemies we got, the more people who want to kill us, the more effort they're making to kill us, the more we can use their own energy, like an Aikido, to kill the victim. And then once the complex number energy body of Nathaniel pops like it did then, gone, we know that the procedure on the fucktard has worked. So it's popped now, which means that it's gone 100%, and that whatever we've done to the fucktard has succeeded. Could we have the next fucktard, please?
But that was why you want people that you want this energy focused on you, so you can use it. Is that right?
Yeah, I want people who want to murder me, hate me, because the more the British government. Remember, the British government's got an entire department of MI5 just to deal with me. And remember, the American military is going mad with what I do. So there's a whole groupings of these super secret organisations in America desperately trying to copy me and undo what I'm doing. All of this energy you can then use on the fucktards. And I'm not saying there are nasty poor people, but what's the point of spending all this time learning how to develop psychic potential when there's no money in it? I mean, I basically deal with everyone and everybody in the same way, but I'm just saying, when you're starting off, you want to practice on one person, and eventually, if you can cause illness, madness, death in that one person, then you know you're on the road to becoming a multi-millionaire, because with cryptocurrency you can then of course start to blackmail A-listers. And of course the A-listers are well aware this technology exists,
because they've used it to get where they are today.
And I'm using it on them, and they all know that I'm out to hound them, and the only way forward for them is to bow down or die. So we've dealt with Nathaniel. Let's see the positive part, because remember, we've now got a surplus. We've been doing in the Rothschilds. There we go. That's it. Now think of...
We've got about 22 minutes left on this part.
There we are. That's in the noosphere. That's the Rothschild. energy, which of course has made them quadrillionaires. So you can see it's very useful. That's why I've got a Rothschild crystal. And this of course is I, because it's adding to you. So we can actually call up the Rothschild energy, the energy that makes them rich and the most powerful family on the planet. And remember, we're not dealing with the minus I bit, we're dealing with the I bit, so you need a crystal that can pump in energy, but I don't like pumping in energy, so we do it simultaneously. We simultaneously go this way and that way. That then uses no energy. So once you've got two of them, no energy to use, so you simply go and then bang, you've got the minus I version of the Rothschilds. That's all the negative bit that comes against you if you try and do in the Rothschilds archetype here, and here we've got the positive bit, which is all the lovely money. Now of course, if we get a delightful person who then goes into the Rothschild energy, you'll get I to the I, which is 0.2, which then of course will mean that the Rothschild's reality will be possessed like the demon in The Exorcist, all for the person that walks into their noosphere being. So of course we do it 5 times to get the total reality. There we are. That's it. And then of course yours truly walks into the Rothschild energy and consumes it, I to the I-ing it. So all of that lovely Rothschild energy comes into me to make me the most powerful man on the planet. So the entire world changes instantly, so that all the energy of the Rothschilds is possessed, taken over by me, for me. And once it pops, you've now only got left the minus I bit, the Rothschilds here, which is all that energy used by them to eliminate any enemy of the Rothschilds and to make the world a horrible place so they can make loads of money. So of course then, new picture of Rothschild please. Give me the sow. Give me a Rothschild sow.
Emma.
Yeah, let's fuck it. There we are, we got a Rothschild sow here. So we now call up the Rothschild sow. There we are. Let's call her up. And we do it simultaneously. I don't want to use any energy now, so let's bang. 2, 3, 4, 5. There we are. Now we've got the complex number energy of Emma. And what we're going to do now is collect all the minus I energy of the Rothschilds, which they use to defend themselves against people like me. Collect it all up. I to the I-ing it, so we stick in the crystal to collect it. We want to collect it till it pops. That means the archetype's been processed. And as you can see, why the CIA and the rest of the countries have been scouring the world for psychics, because most people are deaf, dumb and blind, but normal people can't do these operations, but psychics, it's a child's play. Then of course what we do, we've got now all the energy of the Rothschilds used to destroy their enemies, which we're now going to put into the sow Emma. So we don't even have to think of ways of killing the bitch. All the ways the Rothschilds kill their enemy are now going to be inputted into the bitch. So what we do now is to transfer the energy. So we transfer it into one of these crystals. These have been in Sellafield, so these are negative torsion field crystals. I'll explain that later. And we simply then stick that into Emma 5 times, and we're using the energy the Rothschilds used to defend themselves to kill their own people. That then now has destroyed the complex number body of Emma. Now let's look at the exciting part of when we kill someone in complex number space. So here we are. We've got E for Emma, who's dead in complex number space, and we then input it, because remember this way gives you energy, back into the real number space of Emma. This of course is I, so we've got I to the and real number body of Emma, which of course is the free space, which is another I, which gives us our 0.2. But this time of course we're putting a corpse back into her living body. So we're adding into Emma, we're not detracting, we're adding into Emma all those bits that will turn her real number body into a corpse, be it wonderful things like cancer, or a heart attack, or a stroke, or autoimmune disease. A multiplicity of things that kill bodies, and the immense energy of the Rothschilds used to protect themselves against people like me has been used to input into Emma. So the stronger your enemy is, the more vulnerable they are to this technology. So when you go after people, the bigger the target, the bigger the family, the bigger the A-lister, the more vulnerable they are to being murdered by this technology. So you can see how much fun it is. It's, say, a great potential. Now, of course, with Emma, we can also go this way into satanic space, which then, of course, doesn't need any energy. So we can simply move her into satanic space. There we go, crystals galore. So we simply pull out her minus I body here, and do it 5 times. 2, 3, 4, 5. There she is. Wonderful. I know she's massively pleased we're giving her all this wonderful attention. Now, that means we've got the minus I. Now, I'm going to walk into the minus I body of Emma. I'm an I, of course. Here we are. This gives us the balance. If you do it balanced way, it requires no energy. It doesn't use any energy. This gives you energy, this requires energy, but they balance up. And if they balance up and you get this 180 degree thing, then of course it makes 0, and from physics you get the probability of that event becomes 100%. So that all 100% probability events have 0 energy. Now, if I walk into dear old Emma, there she is all around me, all lovely, minus I of Emma. Good, good, good. This is all the bad stuff of Emma I've walked into. So I'm a luciferic being walking into Emma, eye to the eyeing her, possessing her like in The Exorcist. Remember, Linda Blair from The Exorcist was possessed by acting in the film and killed herself. So now we've possessed all the negative aspects of Emma. We do it 5 times. 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Pop, it's popped. That's good. which means it's worked. This then, of course, gives us I to the minus I of dear old Emma, which is equivalent to 1 over I to the I, which is equivalent to 1 over, so approximate, 0.2, which gives us 5. Well, that's really weird, because remember, the probability of an event is 1, but now we've got 5. So what does 5 mean? Now I've possessed all the negative bits of Emma Rothschild, and I've added to all the minus I negative bits of Emma by sticking all of the minus I bits of the Rothschild they used to defend themselves into her to destroy her. We've got 5. Well, what that means now is that Emma and the Rothschilds have allowed me to be in the 5 state, which means I can be in 5 timelines simultaneously. Now, you're deaf, dumb and blind, but someone like me, I can remotely view myself in 5 different timelines. This, of course, is a great potential, because that then gives me 5 different timelines to walk in to manipulate reality. So think of yourself in your own timeline, but here we've got someone existing simultaneously in 5 different timelines. So that means I can run into the future in this timeline, see what happens, because as a remote viewer you can project your awareness from your body out to your remote viewing body, your RVB, which can run in 4 dimensions. So you can look at some bunker in Russia if you're fucktard. But of course, if you've got one of these eye generators, you can turn this by eye, which is 90 degrees, and go into the 5th dimension, which then means you can see the future, precognitive remote viewing. Now I've got 5 different timelines thanks to Emma, and I can see which one of them is the best for me. So all the mistakes, all the things that MI5 or the CIA or any other agent of the Rothschild might do to me to fuck me is run, and in the future I've got 5 different results. This one was a bad one. This one was a bad one. This one, well, this one was a good one. This one was not that good. This one was bloody brilliant. Just kept on giving and giving and giving. So this is the one I choose. Then I do exactly what I did in this timeline, and the pivotal events that lock me into these timelines I avoid. All of this from simple remote viewing, which the DIA and the CIA were developing way back in the 70s for their remote viewing program. And the energy to do this comes from the fucktard Emma Rothschild, using understanding. So what I'm saying is the CIA and the DIA and the Russians, etc., got loads of programs spending billions and billions, but they don't understand the simple physics. And by not understanding the physics, it then limits them to try something. Oh, it doesn't work. Try something. Doesn't. Oh, try. Oh, that worked. Now, can I replicate it? No, I can't replicate it. Why not? Because you don't understand the underlying science. Remember, everything in psi is to do with energy. So if you don't have the energy, you can't do it. Now, these are the big repositories of energy, because the whole West is run for the Rothschilds. So they, of course, are the primary targets for any sort of psi. Now, of course, having processed Emma, we go back to these 2 fucktards. Is this David and... Oh, it's Alexander, right. That's good. So Emma gets consigned to the dust. How are we for time?
I've got about on this thing. We've got 6 minutes left. If we can sort of do a round up, then we can start again.
No, we'll finish off on these two wonderful people. So these are the de Rothschilds that
Have a break in the middle.
yeah, that run Europe. Now, we go into the different types of crystal. This one, the dark one, is a negative torsion field crystal. A negative torsion field means that the energy, like a vortex, is going inwards. And then we've got a clear one, which is a positive torsion field crystal. Let's have blue. No, let's have green. Green's good. Green's good. There we are. Which is, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the direction of travel is, of course, this way and that way. So torsion was something discovered by the Germans, and they had big torsion field experiments in the Czechoslovakian mine in the 40s, which the Russians took over. And here, of course, you've got the two Rothschilds, one of which is the father, and as we see, he's the cause, he's the effect. So there is, according to Russian research, cause is loss of time density, or as I see it, loss of this scalar or complex number energy, which goes going to the collector, which is Alexander de Rothschild. So we see the time density flow is going that way. So if we collect from the father, then it should all be going to the sun, but we can collect it in this positive one, and the large one we can collect the time density from the sun into that one, which is a larger one. Now this 3 space fits inside this 3 space, so you can actually move like we moved energy bodies, the energy body this inside the energy body of that. That then, of course, would mean that you've got this, which is losing time density, which is a 3 space, inside this one, which is collecting. So we see the flow, which is from the father to the sun. But here, of course, we've collected the energy that is being released in the clear one, and the energy that he's collecting in this one, which we've made negative. So we alter the flow. So in fact, what it looks like is that you've got a negative torsion field, negative, and inside you've got a positive torsion field. This one's collapsing, this one is growing, and eventually they'll meet as this one collapses. This one's growing, and this then is the point of equivalence of the torsion, which then locks in the reality of the father-son. But of course you've got, this is a much bigger one than this one. So this one then can push through to the center, collapsing it into the so-called black hole of vampire technology, which then means that all of the positive energy of the Rothschilds from the father, which was supposed to go to the sun to build a bigger and bigger empire, take over the world, has now been locked up in a vampire crystal. This is a negative torsion field crystal, which is collapsing into a black hole, so that no matter how much energy the Rothschilds parents, family pour into the sun, the only manifestation of it is a negative torsion field, which is destruction. And of course, the end user is whatever entity that can live in the collapsing of a negative torsion field, the so-called vampire technology, which we can talk about in the next part.